Okay, welcome back to our next segment on open source investigations. And in law enforcement, we use open source resources to help us hunt down and track bad guys, and it's a double-edged sword. They can use it to track us down as well. And by open source, what we're really referring to is the public domain. So we use the term open source loosely. That's actually a programmer's subculture of those who provide source code for applications out to the general public, to the public domain, to allow people to collaborate without worrying about paying a license fee or royalties or things of that nature. That's what open source refers to. But like I said, we use the term a little bit more loosely. Specifically, one of our greatest open source or public domain tools is Google. Any of the major search engines actually are. You could use Bing, you could use Yahoo. There's a slew of them out there that are data culminators and aggregators, and they make it very easy to look for whatever you're looking for, including people. So when I would put my name in, and I recommend that everybody do this, put your name in a Google search, make sure that you put it in quotes, because if I were just to put Frank Griffiths there, then it would show every document that Google had indexed that has both the words Frank and Griffiths in it. And so we don't want to do that, because they could be unrelated Frank and unrelated Griffiths. We want them to be a compound search, a compound Boolean search. So we'll put it in quotes, Frank Griffiths, and then it'll only search for Frank Griffiths as an entity or a unit. So that's what we want to do. Put your name in there. Go ahead and do that if you're following along. Here's an example of a screenshot that came up from a Google search when I put my name in quotes. And you can see I have much too large of a cyber footprint. And as a criminal investigator, this is not a good thing. This is bad because, unfortunately, I'm out there at least on some level. For if bad guys wanted to find out more about me, they could. And I could go into why, I guess. I went through a number of years on a specialty unit where I didn't carry a caseload as the primary case agent. And so I kind of got relaxed and thought that I don't have to worry about bad guys looking for me because I'm not the primary focus of any investigation. And now I'm back doing investigations after years of being in that other capacity, serving that other capacity. So my footprint out there is just too big. I co-authored a book. I've been on wikis and blogs, and so unfortunately I show up way too much. Hopefully you weren't that stupid, and you have a little bit smaller cyber footprint. But that's a good place to start. You can kind of see all the different places you are. You'll notice one of mine is LinkedIn, and we'll talk a little bit more about LinkedIn here in a bit. And because I'm not trying to suggest that that you should have no social media presence, and I want to reiterate that. But one of the biggest tools that we use in Google is Google Maps. We'll use it for kind of a pre-surveillance operation. If we want to know where somebody lives and we want to get a feel for the lay of the land, we can go to Google Maps, we can go to Street View, and we can kind of see the front of their house where they live, assuming that the Google car has driven by. Some people have asked me, is this real time? No, it's not, of course not. The aerial satellite views of your house are not real time. They're probably a year and a half old. Same with the Street View. It's Google will drive through the neighborhood every once in a while and update it, but for the most part, it's pretty stale information. But it's still useful to give us an idea of how a residence has looked in the last year or so. Now, again, the double-edged sword, bad guys can use Google Maps to look at your house to find out where you live. If they are able to find out your street address, say through the county recorder, they type your name in and find your deed of trust in public records, and they type that address in. Now they can see where you live and what it looks like. And there's some things that you can do to take precautions to limit your visibility on Google Maps. One of those things is to look down in the lower right-hand corner. Way down there at the very bottom, in the little tiny fine print, there's an option that says Report a Problem. And hopefully my little talking head here isn't blocking that image on the slide, because it is down in the lower right-hand corner, and so am I, down here in the lower right-hand corner of this presentation. But Report a Problem is down there, and you want to click on that. They make it fairly obscure. It's pretty difficult to find. But you'll have several options down there. One of the options you'll see there, I just backed the slide up a little bit, is what would you like us to blur? In other words, they're going to redact information that appears on Google Maps by blurring it. And your options are a face, my home, my car or license plate, or some other object on there that may be potentially offensive or dangerous. Okay, so you can select any of those, but for today's workshop, we're just going to select my home, and this option pops up. It says, "Why are you reporting this to Street View? Why do you want us to blur it?" And all you have to do is indicate in that field that I work for a law enforcement agency. That's all you have to do. Say, I work for a law enforcement agency. And that applies to you if you're a cop, it applies to you if you're a prosecutor, it applies to you if you're any support staff for a law enforcement agency. So, and then you just scroll down a little bit and you check the box that says, "I'm not a robot, I'm a real person requesting this," and then hit the submit button. And once you hit the submit button, Google will send you a link, and the link will give you the option to click on it and confirm that your information has in fact been redacted. Now, I did this, and I went back a couple days later, and sure enough, the front of my house had been completely blurred out. Google had accommodated my request, and you could not see the front of my house. So I went back a few days later to take a screen capture of that and insert it into this slideshow for your benefit, just to kind of see what it looks like. And not only had they blurred the front of my house, but they had removed Street View from my entire block. So they simply redacted the whole street. And so now my house and about 6 of my neighbors on both sides of the street have no access to Street View from Google Maps, and it's my fault. But I think that's okay. Hopefully they are not too upset. They don't know that I did that, but we're all safer from the bad guys for it. So that's kind of a nice little perk. So let's do a quick review. Let's play a little open source trivia for Google. Why do you put quotes around your name when doing a Google search? Okay, take some time to think about that. Pause this if you want, because I'm just going to go ahead and give you the answer right now. If you said the reason you put quotes is to contain that or encapsulate that search to make a compound Boolean search, you are correct. Otherwise, as we discussed, it'll give you hits for both words or all 3 words anywhere in the document. All right, so that's the answer to number 1. Number 2 is, where do you find that report a problem link on Google Maps? And if you said down behind the talking head in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, that's correct. It is just a very, very tiny, minute white print that says report a problem. It's hard to find, probably because Google doesn't really want you to redact your information from their search engine. That would, if everybody did that, there would be no Street View. There would be no, everything would be blurry in Google. So they don't want you to do that, but they have to give you that option, presumably by law. Okay, what options are available to redact from Google Maps? Question number 3, what options are available to redact from Google Maps? As you recall, there was a fly-down menu when you clicked on that report a problem link, and it told you at least 4 things, I think, right? One was my face, one was my house, one was my car or license plate, and the other one was an other object. So if you named any of those 3, that's true. The one we focused on was your home. And last but not least, what reason should you provide when prompted? And you could say any number of things. I fear for my safety, or I work for law enforcement, I'm a cop, I'm a prosecutor, something like that, and they will accommodate you in a few days. And they may even remove your street from Street View altogether. Well, that's all the time we have for right now. We'll end with this Google segment, and then we're going to move into a discussion about Spokeo, I believe, is our next topic. So we're going to talk about Spokeo.com in our next 10-minute segment. Stay tuned. Hope to see you there.